Okay, let's look at chess game. The classic. The classic. The classic. Pretty classic. Nice. Mm. They're like also Londoning. This is good. I like this. Uh, yeah, we're just gonna keep going. I don't see anything yet. Cool. Yeah, so like here you're getting into a pin. You just got to be careful not to fall for any silly. Like this would be bad, right? You're losing that knight, but you obviously don't have to take here if they do this next. This is what I would do next, maybe, but let's see what they do. Why? Don't do this. Don't do this. This is stupid. Don't do this. Why would you take this? Pile up on the pin. It's pinned. It's kind of awkward to get the queen out of there because then you can mess up their structure. Like, start doing stuff. Anyway. So this is a thematic break, as they say. This is also very, it's a little Carol-Connie. Really quick, you don't have to be terrified of this, but you do want to be a little bit scared of this. Like if you do this, I don't know what your next move is. I haven't looked, but if you do this and they do this, I mean, you can just fall back and ultimately this pawn. And I mean, they can do this to like make a big, nice pawn chain, but you can always start chipping away at that. And then you get this classic situation where their rook is not defended. And if they take like this, you just get a free rook. But let's see what did happen. Oh, that is what happened. Right? Right? Bishop takes f3, queen takes c5, boom, boom. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So going here is also chill. My only concern with going here, it gets you off this long diagonal, and this diagonal is just better than this diagonal. And so, like this direction, you're not really. Now it does increase the fear of like doing this and then taking here, but then they can also, they're probably going to do this. What do they do next? Oh, and then the other big reason why I didn't like this, getting off of this diagonal, was because I was afraid of this move. So like this, you can just say no, and you win a pawn, right? Taking a knight for a bishop with a bishop is worth it if you win a pawn. You know when it's not worth it is when you're pinning their knight. Why'd you just take it immediately? Vihaanch, 2012. Anyway, let's see what happens. Oh no, this is the other direction. So you went back this way, which is fine. It's not that bad. You just got to be. For example, you just have to be careful because if this knight wasn't here, they would have a fork, for example, right on your queen and rook right now. Your knight is here, but you still have to be careful. Developing this knight is now awkward. You can't develop it right. If you were to try to say they do something like this, boom, and then they get that. So you just have to be careful with this knight coming in. And that's why I think going back here was ultimately better, is to stop this knight from coming in, because then you can just take. But knight comes in, just got to be a little bit more careful. It's not the end of the world. It's not bad or anything. So let's see what we do here. We take it. So I think that it's actually probably a good idea to take it. Going back and having something like this, once you've castled, having this open file is not as tasty because your rook's way over here now. And now it's even a little bit scary, right? So totally just saying, no, I'm going to nab you, because also this is like this is a good bishop versus bad bishop, right? Technically the bad bishop, because the pawns are all on dark, so your dark square bishop is your bad one. All of their pawns are on light, so their dark square bishop is their good one. So like trading, this is a good trade for you because you're trading your bad bishop for their good bishop. Now, bad bishops outside of the pawn chain are better than bad bishops. They're not as good as good bishops, but they're better than bad bishops if they're outside of the pawn chain like this. This is why you play like the Caro-Kann or the London, is to get your bad bishop, quote unquote, to be a slightly better bishop because it's outside of the pawn chain. But then it can be like harassed by a knight and stuff. Now they definitely want the bishop trade because you have the bishop pair, because they gave up their bishop for no reason for a knight, even though, I mean, it was their bad bishop, so maybe that's what they were thinking, and they were like being very dogmatic. But still, like, try to get something out of it. Try to exploit that pin as much as you can. Vihaanch. Anyway, I think taking it's great. I think they should take with the queen. Maybe because of this, because they're afraid of this sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, this would not be good for you. I would not give up my bishop for that knight there, because then they can just defend this pawn. That's not a super loose pawn, because they'll be able to protect that. I mean, right, and then we have the same thematic idea again of trying to have these pawn chains where you get to win the rook if they try to defend this pawn too much, but they can always like defend it with the queen, blah, 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 blah. So that pawn's not necessarily won. I feel like develop another piece though, like get your queen in the center, get your queen active. That knight's already killer. Why develop your knight back? So then you should respond with knight d2. Let's see what you do. Great, right? Because this guy was preventing you from playing knight d2 the whole time. I don't know why. This is the best piece on the board. Pretty clearly, I think. That's like just intuitively, I think you would agree with that. So, yeah. Right, just like these, like he's not doing bad things, but you are like taking that knight and letting your queen develop. It was good that you developed with queen, and then like, yeah, like just giving you this space. Obviously, this is the most obvious move, but it is good that, you know, you were probably in there. Big castle. Yeah, so I agree. Right, you're gonna win a pawn here. Why isn't he stopping you from winning the pawn? Does he just not see that you have more stuff on it? Oh, and then at the end of it, you're also on this pawn with your queen, because this pawn will open up. Right, so going back to protect this makes sense, but then he follows it up, right? Like giving up, you're like, okay. But also, no, just keep your knight there, and then my knight can't come forward to put pressure on that point in the first place. Take with the queen. Right? Take. Oh, well, no. Then I can't even do this, is the whole point, right? Take. I mean, I guess I could do this now. Oh, no, and then I just win this. So maybe they have to go back with the knight, actually. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Take. Yummy. Boom. So now the question is, you could actually take here first if you wanted to. Take upper rook, bishop, and they don't have any like scary discovery with the knight to get this king here. And then you're just dropping a pawn and a bishop to get the rook, which is pretty good. So maybe that's what you're going to go for. I haven't seen what you're going to go for yet. The other option would be to defend this with a rook, one of these two. The question is which one to defend with. It seems like at the first, you want to do this one, because you want, this is an open file, and you want this rook to have the option. If you do it with this one, then like this rook is trapped. Like none of these files are good for him. But if you let this guy come in and protect it, then this guy has this or this, right? He can support the pawn, or he can come over here and do stuff here. Note that this bishop is already defending the pawn, and we'll soon be able to do a very tasty bishop pawn like synergy thing where they're protecting each other. But let's see what you do. Cool. Yeah, that's what I would do too. This knight's not scary. This is something cool. This is something that I think about every single time my opponent moves their knight, is like, just look at all of their forward moves. Like you could look at all of their moves, obviously, but like looking at their forward moves, they only have 4. And right now all of their forward moves are not options. So maybe they're planning on doing like, right, which can also tell you like, well, what's their plan? Maybe their plan is to do this. Maybe their plan is to do this. But you're not going to take here if they do that because you want them to take here and then you get to take here. And you get two big fatty open files, put the bishop right there. Big pawn structure, you own the center. You have like a 5 against 3, you're chilling. But yeah, just look at like check it out. Like there's no good forward moves. Ooh, this is a spicy option. I like this. Let's see what we're doing here. I like the idea of like your pieces are better, like this bishop, of like breaking down this diagonal. Because I think what you're thinking right now, and I think that this is like a good way to formulate a plan maybe. And I'm just guessing. But maybe you see sort of this, like, man, my bishop is really biting on a rock here. If I could soften this up a bit, you know, and start getting stuff going. And then because you're also recognizing like this coordination maybe through this pawn. If we could just soften up this chain that's sort of blocking my bishop from getting in there. Soften up this diagonal. I think this is a cool move. If they take here, which is an obvious move, you probably take here. And then you could also then later play c4 and again have the nice bishop pawn synergy just right there in the middle of the board. You are kind of leaving this guy behind in the dirt. He's backwards right now, so this is a backwards pawn. That's what backwards means. Because he's not protected by a pawn. He wants to be like here, right? And then that's like a yummy pawn chain. Not saying that this move is bad. I'm just saying that like traditional, like solid pawn chain, this guy wants to be here. That being said, you are winning. You have initiative right now. His queen is doing nothing, like way over here. She can come over here fast, but like you have more initiative. You have like some more stuff to work with, I think, in my opinion. So doing some like weird, let's open up the center stuff, I think is actually totally valid and could even be cool once you put a pawn here and you have this. Normally my like instant plan just to solve quote unquote this backwards pawn would be to like drop this bishop here and then push up here so that I have this sort of nice, you know, d4 c4 supported by e3 structure that I like so much. Something like this dummy move, right? This sort of structure is really nice and comfortable to me. And then you're protected here. That is like my first instinct, but I don't think that I think that that's like really solid, like traditional classical chess is to go for this sort of thing. But I think that your move is cooler and more interesting. So let's see what happens. Yep. I don't even know if they should take like that though. But I mean, the only other option. Yeah, this is good. I think you have to take here and keep your 3 solid because this is hitting. Although I do have a question for you, which is what would you do on this? It's the same as before. That doesn't look very good for us. This looks bad for us. This pawn is awkward and isolated. Like these two are better than these two because these two are friends and these two are cousins or whatever. It's actually true. Cousins are farther away than friends. You don't really hang out with cousins. Usually. Just right away put pressure on this point. And if they do this, then you get this, then you get this strong pawn duo. Maybe this isn't that bad for us. I mean, if you don't go here, I think you have to do queen here. There's no funny stuff that you can do, I don't think. pretty much have to do queen here, because if you do queen here, then this just gets taken for free. This is the only square that protects this and the bishop. That's a good thing to look at, right? Where do I, like, how did I know right away? Maybe I should have explained that. How do I know right away to put this queen here? Because it's the only place that protects this and this. And maybe it seems obvious, but like when you're in a game, that can be really nice to be like, oh, I can actually just hard narrow down my options to 1 or 2 squares, because I have to protect both of these points. And this does nothing for us because we can just take with the bishop and we're living our lives. And it's the same situation as before, and we've got this pressure here and stuff. It's actually unsolvable. We might be winning that. They can go here. Take. We're winning a pawn. So they can't take here. They have to take here, I think, is probably the most likely move. You pretty much... This is not doing anything. And then they could also take with the pawn, maybe. Maybe that's better for them in some way. Like, are we just... We're not down a pawn. This pawn is isolated. This pawn is isolated. I don't think we want to push and take this because then these two become scary. It's sort of up in the air. But he did not do this knight move. Or wait. No, he did not do this. I'm so confused about where the knight move takes place. Instead of knight takes d5. Instead of pawn takes d5, I'm saying this. Yeah, but this is like probably what you saw. And now what do we do here? Probably just play this, right? We're fine. Yep. He's harassing you. He's not threatening this, though. Well, he is threatening... Well, no, he's not threatening this. And let's say that he tries to be clever and go somewhere else. Ooh, scary. I think you can do this. Oh, but then he can just take with the... Never mind. It doesn't work because he can just take with king. But say they take with rook here, then you get this, which is funny. It's not a checkmate, but it's still good for you. But, did you... What? Is there anything... So we just looked and made sure there was nothing threatening. This isn't scary. This isn't scary. This isn't scary. This isn't scary. Not scary. Doesn't do anything. Gotta protect that point. F4 I don't know as a move. F4 is maybe a bit committal. I get that you're going for the attack though, so maybe I respect it the hell out of it for that reason. This pawn is backwards. You got a couple pawns that are attackable, but also they don't have a dark square bishop or anything. This pawn is now super weak, and your king is a bit scary. If they do this, if they just put their queen here, this becomes scary now, because this backwards pawn, which also has rook pressure on it, is now pinned to your king. So this pawn is no longer defended like this. This is committal and probably unnecessary and dangerous, but maybe not bad in the situation because you have a bit more initiative, but they are starting to get initiative. And this is kind of giving them initiative, and this is giving them a target. Yeah, it's giving them a target. Whereas before they didn't have a clear plan. They had this target, but that's not like the easiest target to take. This target is quite a bit softer and more dangerous because it's on this diagonal with your king. Yeah, so I think this is a good idea, trying to get like this sort of thing going, you know? E4? Oh, that's also a way to do it. Okay. Ooh. Getting spicy. This rook is pinned. They maybe could have done this, but then you can just do this, and you're okay. But still annoying, because your rook is still pinned. But they go for this. I think overwhelmingly obvious answer is e5. d6, I think, is easy enough. Yeah, so here, maybe you're right. I would take with the queen, just so that I'm not in a pin anymore. But it's not like they can take advantage of this, because you get to take with check. And you also can get out of the pin at any time with check like this. So it's not a big deal. But also these pawns are so scary that I actually want to trade queens. I want to trade queens and simplify, because this is a game-winning pawn. These two pawns are game-winning pawns. They're two past connected pawns. He only has one rook, you have one rook. That's kind of like nicer to just, like, one rook versus one rook with two connected past pawns is actually quite nice. You get your king into the game, and these two pawns are promoting no matter what. But he's also in danger, and you want to kill him. You're also in danger. But I don't know what the fuck he thought what the fuck do you think is happening here? And then this is just cheddar. Cheddar, baby. Ooh, this is checkmate. I didn't even see that. That's actually beautiful. And then pawns just take these last two dark squares. Well, really good game, actually. I think f4 was fine because the situation and the initiative that you had, but also it's dangerous and it's giving your opponent play and a target that you don't need to give them. And I think d5 was dope. I think d5 is unconventional, and I think like classical chess convention says this sort of thing. But I think d5 is cool and is like it's totally principled to say I feel like I'm up in development. I feel like I'm up in initiative. The biggest thing I would say in this is your bishop is better than this knight, and your queen is better than their queen. So when all of your pieces are better than all of their pieces, it's a good idea to open up the center and start trying to make things happen. And also, yeah, so I think that this is solid. And also, if you go for this, yeah, you are eventually getting stopped by this. So I get like trying to break this down, get stuff happening here. It's just after you recognize, well, maybe you didn't recognize this, but like this is softening up this diagonal to get at the king. This is softening up this diagonal to get at the king. And so while recognizing that, you should also then recognize that playing f4 softens this diagonal and lets them get at your king. So just a couple like what's it called to look out for? Positional ideas to think on, just general pawn stuff. But overall, solid game. A couple isolated backward stuff that could have been a target, but the initiative against the king was so strong, and their queen sucked this whole game. Their queen was doing dog shit. Their queen was just over here floating and doing nothing the whole game. Cool. There was one more thing that I wanted to say about... Oh, it was the move that was not played, this move. I think this move, ultimately, it's fine for you. I don't know if you saw this or not and calculated to see that it's fine for you, but definitely watch out for this. And this is what happens every time you move a pawn. You got to check the squares that it was just defending, because now it's no longer defending these squares. And this, my instinct is that you didn't see this, and that it is overall lucky that this is not super bad for you, because this ends up being like okay ultimately for white. But just be aware that these pawns were doing, and we talked about this earlier, right? These pawns were doing such work to keep this knight out that you have to recognize then that when you move one of them, it's going to open up one of those squares for the knight to go forward. So this ended up not being a problem, but it could have been. So that's just something to remember too. But overall, sick game and sick checkmate, and pretty like efficient, clean checkmate. I feel like I'm not the fastest checkmater, but it's so cool. It doesn't even look like a checkmate. Like I keep wanting to click forward. It's a good checkmate. Cool. Dope. How do I stop?